I'm sure many of you have already caught wind of this internet blow-up/leak that occurred with a quote-unquote dating website referred to as T. But there's a lot more than meets the eye when it comes to this website, and I thought it'd be worthwhile talking about it. Now, nominally, this website, T, is a dating website for women, exclusively for women, intended as a safe space for women, so they can talk amongst each other in safety and security, where they won't be harassed by men, where they don't have to worry about creeps and weirdos, this sort of thing. Now, to the contrary of these claims, and this is evident based on everything from the image you see in front of you, i.e., this is the true nature of the website, to the name itself, T, this website is basically a gossip-mongering website and remains so. Now, for the record, in case you're not informed of this, T does not refer necessarily to the tea you drink. It's not iced tea. It's not Earl Grey tea or green tea. Tea is a kind of slang that goes back to the 80s, in fact, from African-American drag culture. And tea, again, to reinforce my earlier point, refers to gossip. Tea is gossip. So T is a website for women to quote-unquote feel secure and safe in their strivings with respect to dating and their concerns about men. But in reality, all it is a gossip website. Now, in order to get onto the website, at least hitherto, it was the case that you had to, as a woman, present photographic evidence from real life that you, in fact, were a woman, because God forbid any man might slip onto the website. Again, it's a safe space for women. So, you had to upload various images. Some women have uploaded their driver's license photos, work photos, this sort of thing, to verify that they're, in fact, the women that they claim to be, and also to be permitted to be on the site in the first place. Now, this is all hunky-dory, I guess, but the reality is that this website has become unraveled because some people from 4chan, and I wouldn't even call them hackers, just broke the code, so to speak. And thousands and thousands and thousands of women have been doxxed, i.e. their real ID and information has been leaked all over online. Now, many people have viewed this as a sort of retaliatory action on the part of the hackers. I don't think it really was. It was just something they decided to do. But the long and short of it is that as this website is basically a gossip website, many things have come to light, including extremely nasty and borderline defamation-like things have come to light. So, as can be expected, women being the gossip mongers of our species, many, many things were said about the men there. Sometimes they're relatively benign. Sometimes it's just women gossiping and claiming that this guy is only a 6 or a 5 or whatever, that sort of thing. But in many more egregious cases, and there are many such cases apparently, allegedly, the women are engaging in actual defamation. And on top of that, what they do is they procure images, as a rule, from men that men have almost never consented to. So it could be that the woman is copulated with a man, and then she decides when he's sleeping or not aware of it to take a photo of him. She then uploads said photo onto the website and then begins a gossip column with her fellow females about said man. Or it can be as simple as just randomly taking a photo of a guy on the street or a man they might know without him knowing, maybe at a party or a gathering, and uploading it from there. In any event, the men, as a rule, almost in all cases, as far as I'm aware of, do not consent to the photography or the images being uploaded. And once the images are uploaded on this quote-unquote T website, then the women gossip incessantly about the men. Now, the worst of this are the so-called creeps, right? Because what this is, in addition to being a gossip-mongering forum to engage in their favorite activity in life, is also to quote-unquote vet men. And I do think there's some vetting going on here. Remember, part of the attraction of a man lies in the vetting process, the social vetting process of women. So, for example, if you have a guy, we'll call him Jim, and you have Jill, Sally, and Jane, and none of them are interested in it, well, Jim's in a bad spot then. But if Sally and Jill like gym and the other woman does not, maybe the other one will start taking an interest in him, right? That's the social dating process. So it's also used for this purpose. It's a typical female behavior, obviously. But what they have also done, these women, is they have, as I said, defamed some of these men, ranging from being creeps to suggesting that some of these guys are, quote unquote, the P word, the P word involving youngins and what have you. Yes, things of that nature. Now, the problem here, at least based on my research at least, is that the legal lines are pretty fuzzy and blurry here. But setting aside the legal aspects of this website, you can definitely see how a man whose name has been dragged through the mud, or rather his image, then is made known to tens, if not hundreds of thousands of different women as a P word, even though he's not that at all. And then what happens? Because there's another thing going on here. Obviously, in some of these cases, maybe in many of these cases, the women in question have dated some of these men that they have purloined these images from. And the reality is maybe they didn't have a good time, or maybe the guy even rejected them. And we all know hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. What happens, and what has happened, I've observed this in reality with respect to some friends of mine back in the day, women being rejected start spinning tales about the man who rejected them. And what happens then? The man lands in reputational disrepute. And this, again, is a typical standard tactic on the part of women, reputational damage. They do it to themselves a great deal. The slogan, women have no real friends, they just have frenemies. But they also do it to men. Oh, he didn't like me even though I wanted to go out on a third date with him. He decided to reject me. Oh, I'll make up a story about how he was a creep, or how he carnally assaulted me or harassed me, or even such an egregious story as I'll make up a story along the lines of, oh, he's actually a P word, even though I have no evidence whatsoever. Such things are eminently possible. Unfortunately, the relative anonymity of this website, which has now been cracked, has allowed all these women to get away with it. Now, again, none of this seems to break any real legal precedent. Although some men have tried to press lawsuits, none of this has really worked out. Apparently, it's been thrown out. But in terms of decency, in terms of just common ethics and having a normal moral framework, well, clearly the women have gone beyond the pale here. Now, another thing this website, or rather the women who have participated in this website, and we're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of such women, what it's done is shed light on I call it the new cruelty of women. Now, it's not the case that women have never been cruel. Obviously not. We're all human beings, and both men and women can be cruel. But the problem I see here, and the reality that we currently live in, is that whilst men have never had a license to be cruel, despite what people claim, and even less so now than in earlier times, I'll admit that much, women back in the day had various restrictions and limits placed on them. Why? Because it was probably necessary. And indeed, inasmuch as women behaved in untoward ways towards men, other women, society in general, they would be ostracized. And ostracization is, of course, historically and more importantly, prehistorically, one of, if not the cruelest punishment you can experience. And so women, and in particular this nasty streak in terms of behavior, were held in check with respect to society at large and even their inner circles. The internet has given free rein and license to women to do and say whatever they want. And lo and behold, what you see on display here is quote-unquote new behavior. Nothing new is under the sun, obviously. But it's a kind of behavior you wouldn't have seen as frequently because women were basically effectively prohibited from engaging in such behavior because they did not want to be shunned and cast out of their respective tribe, in this case, out of the larger social landscape. And so excessive cruelty, making fun of men, calling them creeps, defaming them, bringing them into the worst forms of disrepute. As I mentioned, some of these guys have been called the P word with no evidence whatsoever. That was just a no-go and completely impermissible. Now, it's an everything goes situation. And I've talked about the everything goes society before. It's a variant of that, in fact. And this applies across the board. You see it with women also with respect to the way they reject men. It's very rarely kind or understanding, such as, oh, I'm just not interested. These days, it's much more of a hammer blow to the face with an insult to put the cherry on top, right? So I'm not only not interested in you, you're an ugly, disgusting creep, get the hell out of my face kind of thing. So although I understand the concerns about security and the breach of security with the so-called safe space for women, a gossip mongering forum, as I said, I have very little sympathy, to be perfectly honest. The women who are participating in this site, probably not all of them, but the very fact that they were on this site showed the kind of intent of behavior that would turn me off from them in terms not just as women, but as people in general. They were engaging in highly suspect behavior, in my view, perhaps not illegal behavior, but highly unethical behavior, and engaging in all the types of behavior I've come to really just not appreciate about people, but more specifically about women. The gossip, the nasty reputational damage. And the problem is, as I have to reiterate again, is that these photos were lifted off of situations in men that, in many cases, were not aware of anything going on here. Imagine you're some guy that's just copulated with a woman and she had a bad time for whatever reason. She regrets it, or you didn't pay for the coffee and cake or the dinner, and she decides to start a nasty rumor about you based on no evidence whatsoever other than her lies, and it spreads not just between her and her intimate friends, but across the entire interwebs to hundreds of thousands of women, and all of a sudden, you are enemy number one. That is very, very dangerous. So although the hack and breach of data, I think, is illegal, probably, the behavior on the part of these women and the intention of this website, literally a gossip website, as implicated and indicated by the name itself, T, I have no sympathy whatsoever. And it's a sign of the times, I have to say. Just look how far we have fallen in terms of our ethical compass, in terms of how we engage with each other, and in specific, as always, in terms of the moral and ethical demands we put on women. Women have none, and women never need to take accountability, because even now, as I make this video, the sloganeering and the claims about this website being, in truth, just a secure, safe space for women so they can feel okay when they're making choices about dating and discussing things with their friends so they don't have to worry about the evil men's. I mean, even now, this is continuing despite the reality that has surfaced about the true nature of this website. Anyway, as always, thank you for tuning in. Many special thanks to my very generous patrons on Patreon, my donors on PayPal. Without you, this channel simply could not exist. Thank you so much. And if you can engage in the usual YouTube jazz with liking the video, sharing the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, much appreciated. If I'm still alive, I'll check you out then. Until the next time, may the gods truly watch over you. Bye-bye for now.
If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.